And welcome into the Point After podcast here on the Oklahoma Sports Network. And this is episode 18 for those who are keeping track and keeping count. And we're kind of knee deep into football and Thanksgiving. So first and foremost, happy Thanksgiving on the eve of Thanksgiving. I don't know if we really get a time off, for those who are preparing for football or not. And that's why I'm bringing in my football guru, and my guest that's been here for the last month or so is Chris Evans from Guthrie News page. And are you going to have a Thanksgiving before we start the mayhem on Friday? Are you going to actually have some turkey? What is your tradition usually?
Yeah, actually, my wife is out collecting the goodies right now, and we're going to have a family get together every here in Guthrie, so I don't have to travel out of town or out of state like a lot of people have to do. So blessed there to have family come here to town. So ready to eat, but ready for some football as well. So we'll get a little NFL football. I'm sure you'll be busy on Thursday. I know you're busy on Friday, but
it starts with tomorrow. I mean, it's a tradition in my home, and I'm originally from Michigan, so I'm a diehard Lions fan, and so I was not a bandwagon guy. That's now that they're 9-1 or 10-1, and so, yeah, but the only thing is they've not won a Thanksgiving game, I think 6 or 7 years. It's been a while. I mean, and we've not been good for a lot of those years. And last year was a Green Bay lost at home. And so looking forward to it. And it's a divisional rivalry, too. It's kind of you got Minnesota just one game behind, and so you can't mess up. And when is that going to be? And it's a divisional game against the Bears, and then you play the Packers the following week on that Thursday. So back-to-back Thursday games. So very interesting NFL slate. You got some good games to watch, and then high school football, and that's what we're here to talk about across the great state of Oklahoma as we kind of preluded the football season because of the additions to some new championships with 3, in fact, when you break it down into the 2As that have been divided and the Bs divided, and the A's divided. So you got an extra championship. So that means some extra week of football, and very interestingly, semifinals for like half of them or so, because the other ones are a bye week, including 5A and 4A, which you follow and I follow. So it's really 6A and 3A, 2A down. So it's semifinals for these teams. And, they always say, coaches say, if you're practicing the week of Thanksgiving, you've done something right, and it's a very special time.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I know we'll talk a little bit later on with Guthrie, but I don't think, it's always been about practicing on Thanksgiving Day. But Guthrie, one of those teams with a bye this week. I don't think they're practicing on Thanksgiving Day. I haven't looked at the schedule lately, but Coach Beebe in his postgame conference said they were going to take Thanksgiving off. I was like, man, that is weird. But there's 12 semifinal football games this week, and then we got state championship games next week, and it'll be being played during semifinals. So it'll be all hands on deck next week. But 12 games this week. The bye week. Some coaches were like, man, let's just keep on playing. But there's been a couple of small nagging injuries that popped up last week. So I'm sure they kind of like the bye week. Some schools do just to get healthy for some key players.
Yeah, and like you said, in case you're having to keep score, there'll be semifinal games this week. There'll be finals next week for some of the classes and semifinals for other classes. So, and then they'll finish up like the 13th and 14th of December, which will be the last slate. I think 5A championship would be the last one in the state of Oklahoma on the 14th on that Saturday evening. Okay, so let's get to the semifinals of what we do have and some of the featured games that you'll be helping out with the NFHS network. We'll start off with the highest class like we have traditionally done, and we'll start with this 6A1.
Yeah, no surprise really with Bixby easily over Norman North, 59-14. Norman North has a great quarterback, but I think Norman North, remember, they start off 0-6 and it had finished the season really, really strong. So hands off, or congratulations, Norman North, for not giving up, being 0-6. And to make a strong battle all the way to the second round of the playoffs. So much kudos to them, but they're just too much dependent on their quarterback, and Bixby can really expose that kind of thing. And they did 59-14 to move on to the state semifinal and take on Edmond Memorial. Is a great first half game between Memorial and Norman. Memorial kind of separate themselves, and It was a matchup of two great quarterbacks. David McCombs, one of the best quarterbacks in the state, could be argued the best quarterback in the state, however you want to look at that. So Edmond Memorial in a 6A open field this year where you have maybe 6 teams that can win it all. And no doubt the 4 teams remaining can win it all, but it was a little bit deeper than in the years past. Of course, Owasso, they cruise as well, 40-26, 2 touchdown victors over Deer Creek at home after the bye week, and then Jinx Union meeting up again. And it's had Union's number in the last few games, especially in the postseason. Remember, Union won earlier 9-3, which we talked about right here, Eric, on your show. Whoever wins that regular season game usually loses that postseason game.
That's true.
That proved to be true in 2024 again.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why, beating a team twice. And then especially if you lose early and then you come back. So, yeah, I mean, so it could be look like Owasso and Bixby for a showdown for a finals. And then, of course, playing each other again.
Yeah. You look at Owasso undefeated, the undisputed number 1 team in high school football this year. But to win that championship, there might have to be, or they're going to have to beat Jinx twice for sure. And if Bixby gets there, they're going to have to beat them twice again. And, Owasso is getting up some points, 40-plus points to some teams that, weren't impressive records. So they're going to have to get up again. Remember, they somewhat embarrassed Jinx earlier in the year. And so Jinx has played really, really good. Remember, at the beginning of the year, we were talking about Jinx and all their transfers coming in. Well, now I think it took them a little while to mesh and come together, and now they've really come together. So it'll be a fantastic matchup just because of the different, Jinx has been there and done that. Owasso has, but not to the level as Jinx. So that's the 1 o'clock game in Claremore, and then 7 o'clock you got Bixby and Edmond Memorial. Bixby not the team of the past, but I guarantee I don't know what their win streak in the consecutive postseason games they've won in a row. I think it's 18 or 19 in a row with all their state championships. And then you have Edmond Memorial, who, first semi they've ever been in since the splitting off of the other Edmond schools. So they're in uncharted territory. Bixby, been there, done that. So very, very intriguing matchups on both sides of 6A1.
All right. And, it's kind of like the names that we were used to seeing and thought that, when the dust settled, that's kind of what's going to be. And so we'll have some semifinal matchups. Now, 6A2 is very interesting because since Bixby has moved up to 6A1, we talked about this. This has been really kind of a shakeup of who really wants that state championship. And it started a couple of years ago with Stillwater, and they were the first since Bixby departed. And then Muskogee, another new champion last year, and Muskogee's trying to get that back-to-back presence. So what is 6A2 looking like?
Yeah, I think Muskogee a favorite to win it all right now. They've gone through the entire season. It had some good challenges at the beginning of the year. It's kind of the middle of the year wasn't as strong as we talk about 6A2 all season long. It really has not been a real great class. I mean, the top 4 are really, really good, and then 5 through 10 are similar to each other, and so. Just, the 5 through 10 or 5 through 12, they would play each other and those would be good games. But then when they took on the top 4, it was blah. And, that being Choctaw, Muskogee, Stillwater, and Sand Springs. And to no surprise, those are the final 4 teams in 6A2. You got Choctaw against Sand Springs. On the other side, you got Muskogee and Stillwater. And the big game in the regular season was Stillwater and Choctaw. Choctaw won that game. So they're on the opposite side of Muskogee, who many thinks is the best team on paper anyway, with Thicklin, the quarterback, who he has the argument to be the player of the year in the state of Oklahoma. And then PJ Wallace, the running back for Muskogee, he transferred in over from Bartlesville. And those 2 guys, along with everyone around them, Coach Travis Hill at Muskogee does a fantastic job. He has won state championship at Tulsa Central. He's had many great teams. So you put all those great athletes with Coach Hill, and that's why they're favorite to win that one. But Stillwater, Coach Kaywood, they've had this postseason run over the last few years, so they won't be intimidated at all taking on Muskogee. And Muskogee last week, it was 0-0 Putnam City at halftime, 0-0, and Muskogee gets 2 touchdowns in the second half to win at 14-0. Putnam City led by Coach Willis Alexander. They've done a great job all season long. And for the good part, when you talk 1 through 4, those 4 we talked about, Putnam City was that number 5 team throughout most of the season. They had dipped maybe a time or 2, but they were probably that number 5 team all season long, and they gave Muskogee everything that they won it. Sand Springs, it was two different styles of offense against Piedmont. Piedmont, I don't know if they even threw the ball 5 times, and Easton Webb threw it 5 times, probably in the first 5 plays of the ball game. So they had no issues there. So the Final Four in 6A2 is finally here. Muskogee and Choctaw. Choctaw was a yard away from making last year's state championship, but they fell 1 yard shy in the state semifinals. So they're hungry to get back to the championship.
Yeah, and that would ever since the split and ever since Bixby went up, it's really been fun. It's been a fun class where it's kind of wide open, and who can really put together a great run. So, we take a little break, bye weeks for 5A and 4A. We'll come back and talk about them next week. So now we go to 3A and down below where we're going to have some semifinal matchups. And this is kind of what we were talking about for the last several weeks of what it looks like it could be.
Yeah, no doubt. Heritage Hall, Lincoln Christian. Lincoln Christian, number 1 team all season long. Heritage Hall, number 2 all season long. I spoke with some folks over at Lincoln Christian yesterday, and they think this team is better than last year's team. And that says a whole lot because they were really, really good last year. And they lost a couple of wide receivers, a couple of brothers to Jinx High School. And so for them to be as good as they were, even if they're the same as last year, it was a very talented group. Heritage Hall is great again this year. Not quite to the level where they were last year, but they're still a very good ball club. They reload every year. They got a great running back in the Travis kid. And so Lincoln Christian will be challenged for sure. Heritage Hall on that side of the bracket. The other side, you'll have Sulphur against Shakota in the semifinals, and Shakota upset the district champion Cassia Hall in a 4-1 matchup in the first round. And then last week in a good one against Bristow, 35-32. Of course, Shakota has Elijah Thomas. He's a big-time football player. He's committed to the University of Oklahoma. I think he went off last week. He had some great numbers. I think he had a game-winning score as well late in that game against Bristow. So Shakota, a little bit of a surprise, but they're good. And we'll see how Shakota is against Sulphur, who has been so stellar all season long. Easy time last week, 53-21 over the Ida Bell Warriors. But Sulphur, their quarterback, I think, what came over from Prague a year ago, and to add on to their team that was pretty solid last year. I think Sulphur, and we said it here a couple times, I think they have a pretty easy path to the championship game. But Shakota is playing their best football right now, which is exactly what you want to be happening. And so no one gave them a chance against Cassia Hall, gave them a fighting chance against Bristow, and many people will pick Sulphur to get to the championship. So we'll see how it plays out. But, it's looking like Sulphur, Lincoln Christian, if I were to guess, and that's what makes it fun. So if I'm right, I feel good. If I'm wrong, you'll have, you were wrong. But we'll see.
And everybody likes the underdog, especially when you counted them out, and then you get a Division I player like that.
Yes.
Can make such a difference on a field and in a game like this, and turnovers, penalties, those kind of things. Friday night lights. And they're going to play the afternoon game, so it's going to be. I've talked to teams that had to go play in the afternoon. And it kind of plays with your psyche when you're playing at 1:00 in the afternoon and it's the sun's still up, But they'll make the best of it in the semifinal matchup.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you talk about turnovers and penalties, but also special team scores are also a big factor this late in the season as well. And Elijah Thomas, he's a threat anytime he gets the football. So that will be fun to watch. See if Shakota can shock Class 3A for the second time in this postseason. I wouldn't put it past them, but Sulphur will be a very, very tall challenge for them.
Okay, so we go down to 2A. We've got a split there. So in 2A2, we're going to have the first state championship for that. But on the top side of 2A, these are kind of like in these conversations we've had, not that just kind of like the best meet the best at this time of the year.
Yeah, and Millwood first play of the game against Chandler last week. I don't know how far it was, 70+, 80+ yard score on the very first play, 6-0. And Chandler actually took the lead 7-6 in the second quarter, but then Millwood turns it on to win that one 22-7. So Millwood's going to take on Marlowe, who got past Kingston 27-21. Marlowe is a dangerous team for the Millwood Falcons. Millwood has been that number 2 team all season long in 2A1. And I think Marlowe will give them everything they want over at Noble High School, a game that you will have, Eric, yourself at 7 o'clock. I think that will be a fantastic matchup between those two schools. And Marlowe's going to be tough, so Millwood has to be disciplined and ready to go because Marlowe is hungry. And they've had a couple of close games. Millwood has had some close games, but have kind of taken off a little bit. I think Marlowe will have a great chance at taking out number 2 Millwood.
Wow. That's, and that's why you play the game. So, and looking forward to it, and saw Marlowe with the, state championship not too long ago, still can hold on to that confidence, knowing that they've been in these positions before, even though they've kind of bounced around in class sizes as well to settle on. And, they had to go up with the Washington thing before. So, there's kind of long history there. And so they've got some playoff history too. We talk about some of those teams that kind of hang around to say, okay, this is not our first dance. We've been to this rodeo before. We kind of know what to do.
Yeah, and they got a baseball program that has been in some big games as well. So I think the Marlowe kids will not be intimidated at all against Millwood. And so Millwood's got great athletes. You still got to stop all those great athletes because those Millwood players, they're so dangerous in the open field. So Marlowe's going to have to be able to tackle in open space because it will be a lot of points scored for Millwood if Marlowe can't do that one. I think it's a fantastic matchup, one of the top matchups I think all week long in the state semifinals. The other side will be fun as well. You got Washington and Metro Christian. Washington, that game being played over at Hara High School. Washington, the undisputed number 1 team all season in 2A1, trying to repeat as well. They got the state's longest winning streak. And they've had some close games this year. They've had to go to overtime and won those games. So I think that makes it much better Washington Ball Club. You can go through there, like Carl Albert this year, shutting people out, winning by 7-8 touchdowns. Of course, if you can do it, it'd be great to do that. But Washington's been challenged a little bit more than years past. And I think this will be fantastic for them. Remember, Marlowe gave Washington everything they wanted in their game. And so in the same district there, but Washington, no issues with Kiefer and Perry, giving up 14 points in their 2 postseason games so far. Metro Christian, though, scored 55 against Bethel, 27 against Jones. This is Metro Christian offense. That offense is always fun to watch every single year. Don't matter who the quarterback is, but when they have a good quarterback, it's really fun to watch. So it's going to come down to Washington's defense of trying to contain Metro Christian's offense in this one. But, Washington has been there, done that against a good schedule. And I think many people would have Washington moving on to the state championship game against either Millwood or Marlowe. I would not be so. It would be a great championship rematch if it's Millwood, but if it's Marlowe, it's going to be another big time matchup at UCO.
Yeah, no, the Marlowe folks will bring the folk. I love these classes because they will definitely jam the stands. so they'll bring the whole city. So 2A2 is we go down to the first ever state championship in this round. So we got some new names and some new faces.
Yeah, Stroud easily over Salina, 56-21. Colcord, they beat Holdenville 36-14. Holdenville was the district champions when they stunned Davis, but Colcord had no issues with Holdenville. Vian, the number 1 team all season long in 2A2 football. No issues with Beggs, 35-7. Beggs, we talked about last week here on the show, Eric, just kind of back and forth with Beggs, and Vian, very, very talented, wins that game. But Adair, undefeated all season long, and they took on Davis, who I had as my preseason state championship pick. Davis wins that game 27-24. Davis started off, I think, 0-3, but they played 3 high-quality opponents, went up in class and played high-quality opponents, lost to Holdenville, so they had to go finish second in the district, took on Adair, and Davis wins in a good one, 27-24. That is a state championship-type game, Adair and Davis in the second round, and this is a big-time matchup this week with Stroud and Davis. Again, same situation where Davis was against Adair, an undefeated team. Now they're going against, an undefeated team in Stroud. This will be a big-time football game. Eric, you got 2 games in Noble. How what the control you got, man? You handpicked your games. You got 2 fantastic matchups in Noble. Can't wait to see how those go for you, man. So excited there. Then the other side, you got Colcord and Vian on there. Colcord has been in many games in these situations, just never been able to get over that hump. And that's nothing against their program. They've just gone up against some stellar programs in these type of games year after year. And they'll have another one here with Vian, who is well known for their great athletes, tough kids in Vian, a program that doesn't get talked a whole lot about in the Tulsa and Oklahoma City area, but Vian, a very good team that has a program. They are a program. And so it'll be fun to see that Vian Colcord, but Stroud Davis is where it's at on the state semifinal on that left-hand side of the bracket. Be fun to watch.
And I love that we're going along for the ride and doing this for the NFHS network. You can go and log on and subscribe and watch some great games. And so I could kind of manipulate those. I like to be in two places at once. And wait till next week. Next week there's games that I've circled on 5A. They say and 4A that say, man, I'd like to be at this one and this one. And I think that's what the fans are waiting for. Because some of that first round games were just really one-sided, and you thought, when are we going to get to see some football? So now you're really getting the best of the best. Semifinals, you're talking the top four in a class, so it should be that way.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead.
It's teams from different parts of the state. Davis, Adair played last week, and now this week you have Davis and Stroud, two teams that normally don't play each other. So and you mentioned the NFHS network, $11.99 or whatever it is. You get that for 30 days. So you get to watch. If you get that network, you can watch every single game at 1 and 7. You just hang out and don't have to drive from town to town. You can just sit there and just be a football junkie.
Yeah, and then you get all the finals to go along with it. There's over at UCO, so that's really going to be good. All right, so now we go down to the A class. So another, again, splits here.
Yep, A1. Well, Eric, we'll have a new state champion in Class A football. Fairview gets beat by Rejoice Christian 34-7 in a number 2 versus number 3 matchup. And not surprised that Rejoice Christian won, a private school in Owasso. Not surprised that Rejoice won that game, but the way they won that game by 27 points. So the two-time defending champions are done. Rejoice Christian will take on Christian Heritage on the right side of that A1 football bracket. The other side, the Hooker Bulldogs, and a good one over Pecola, 46-30. And Pawnee easy victor over Cashin, 40-13. Both Hooker and Pawnee, these are probably the two best defenses in A1 football. Hooker's defense has been solid all season long. They shut out Minko, did give up the 30 to Pecola, but remember, Pecola has a Division I kid on their team, and it is pretty darn good football team in Pecola. But Hooker, Pawnee, the first 1 to 3 might win this football game here in this state semifinal. It will be fun to watch. I think Hooker, with the experience they've been building up over the last couple of years, they're another program team up there in the Panhandle, Oklahoma. They've been building up to this type of game here in this season. I think this is their best shot to win a state championship. Pawnee is a young, great defensive ball club. We'll see how they do offensively. They did put 40 on Cashin, and they put 30 on Panama, but this will be a tough test for that Black Bear offense against the Hooker Bulldog defense. So that will be a great semifinal. I think Hooker, you got to favor them. I think they have the defense, they have the experience to do it. But sometimes, Eric, when you're the young Pawnee team, you don't know, sometimes you don't know it all. And sometimes that's the best way to not know it all and just go in there and play your football. And, we weren't supposed to beat them. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah,
we
that's
did.
right. They're ranked number 1 all season long, and they're up by themselves, in an area that we're not familiar with. So so it works out good.
Pawnee kids are tough.
Yes, A2 again, new faces, new names, new things to get ourselves familiar on.
Yeah, and we had a classic second round game that is a state championship type feel to it, and here it was in a second round playoff game with Thomas beating Hominy 20-14 in a fantastic A2 football game. And so Thomas Fay Custer, the Terriers, they were in the state championship game a few years ago, and then they went way down. I mean, they were in the state championship game, and the year after that, and maybe 2 years, they were like 1-9, 2-8, but they have stormed back into A2 dominance here, and they'll take on Tallahena. And the other side will be Regent Prep against Woodland. Woodland, the undisputed number 1 team in A2 football. Woodland, 34-point victors in round 1. Last week, they won by 50-plus points. And so they'll take on Regent Prep. Regent Prep will give them a good test just because Regent Prep has a really good offense. But Woodland, I think, is the most overall team in the entire class of A2. Woodland is a team that could be playing for the A1 state championship. They're, as you said, with the split, they're in the lower part of Class A playing A2. But this is a team that could win A1 this year. That's how good they are. And so that will be two fun state semifinals as well. I would certainly think Thomas Fay, Custer, and Woodland would be in that championship if you go by paper. And of course, they're not going to play on paper. I'm pretty sure they're going to play the games on the field. So we'll see how that one plays out.
Yeah, that's how it should be. Okay, and the last class that's going to play, because C is going to be again bye week. They're going to play on December the 6th, the following weekend. But B split in 1 and 2, and again another new champion and some new names for this class as well.
Yeah, B1 football. We talked about you get to the second round, you kind of have some lopsided games, and we had a couple of those, but we had some good ones in B1 football as well. Laverne was not one of those games that was good. It was 53-6 over Caddo. As you mentioned, a new state champion will be played or will be had in B1 football. Laverne took care of that. Laverne will take on Garber. Garber had a fantastic ball game. I think it was 38-34, something like that, against Yale. And so Laverne and Garber, they had a run. I'm starting to date myself, but they had a run, I want to say maybe a decade ago, where they couldn't lose a football game. They couldn't lose a basketball game.
Wow.
But now here they are in the state semifinals against a good Laverne team that will be played up at Northwestern Oklahoma State University, which is in Alva. And if you've never been able to go to that football stadium, they have a really nice stadium, great press box and stands. They go all out there in Alva. Other side of the bracket, Alec, Oklahoma. It's Hollis against Dewar. Hollis easily over Drumright by a couple of scores, and Dewar had no issues. So I certainly think may come down to a Laverne and Dewar state championship game in B1 football, but it should be two very good state semifinal games.
And then finally, B2. So we'll kind of close out of our look at all the semifinal games that are played on this Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yep. Final four sets. Sealing will take on Covington Douglas, and Walika will take on Wilson Henrietta. Walika, they've been so well in football over the last couple of decades. It all started with the Bacoma brothers over at Walika. They won some state championships over there, and then they're taking on a team in Wilson Henrietta. There's two Wilsons, the ones that your folks are probably familiar with over there, kind of by the Ringling area, down in that area. Wilson Henrietta, obviously near Henrietta, and you got to remember there's three brothers and you were there at the state basketball tournament that won the state championship with those three brothers. Well, no surprise, they're in the state semifinals playing football as well. So I'm sure those three brothers have something to do with their success. They'll take on a tradition strong though team in Walika, and that'll be fun. You have a new team in Wilson Henrietta that nobody knew of until basketball season, taking on a powerhouse Walika. Other side, Sealing. If this was a girls' basketball game, it's already over with. But this is still football season. They'll taking on Covington Douglas. No issues with Shattuck, 48-14. So and Sealing shut out Cherokee 40-0. So I think we're going to have two really good state semifinals: Sealing, Covington Douglas, and then Walika and Wilson Henrietta. Should be fun in B2 football. And I'm glad for B1, B2 in Class C. They'll get to play at UCO as well. Remember, they've been at other sites during the same time as the games at Watland. And not that those towns are not forgotten about, but it's good to have them to have their showcase game as well inside UCO.
Well, and three brothers, they may not be the Selmans, but it's very impactful when you can have brothers that have that chemistry and they can put it together on a court or a field. So that's going to be a good thing too. All right, so Class C going to take a bye week along with 4A and 5A. Can't wait to talk about that next week, and we'll hold that off for this edition of the podcast. And just wishing you and your family a good Thanksgiving. Now I know you're a food guru because we're Facebook friends, and I see some of the delectables that you put on Facebook from time to time.
I love a ham, and I put out the question: is your family doing a ham or turkey? I think turkey won, but I'm a big ham guy, and
Ours is both, but I always get the argument from the side of the family. I'll give in. I'll say, okay, traditional turkey, or I'm actually doing traditional turkey, a smoked turkey, and a ham. And we got some people to come to make sure we eat that all up. And they all want the both choices. But when it comes to Christmas, and I'll say, are we going to do a small smoked turkey? No, we had turkey at Thanksgiving. Yep. I said, hold on a second. We also had ham.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
why don't we just serve it again both? Because it's only talking twice a year. Just give me a small little turkey breast. I like to just accommodate, because I like the turkey sandwich afterwards. I'm just kind of like, yeah, we can have that, but then later, not late football games, and you say, okay, it's time to venture back in the kitchen for one more little go around, so.
There's a lot of pressure to complete a 4th down and 8 play with your season online, but there's a lot of pressure on that person cooking the turkey as well, because it can dry out so fast. It's all in the brine, and if you're not brining by now, you might not have a fighting chance. But it's all about that brine. My brother has a great brine. I'm not a big turkey guy. I had his turkey, and it was juicy. That's all. It's the most important thing is a juicy turkey. It dried out the bird. I'm done.
That's right. Lots of gravy or something else to mash it. Yeah. All right. Well, and then with pie to boot. So have a great Thanksgiving. Have a great Friday. I know I'm looking forward to it as well. Got some great showdowns across the state with semifinal matchups. NFHS Network. You can check us out there. You've got your broadcast. We got our broadcast to help with the NFHS Network through this time frame. And exciting to talk about high school football once again. Chris Chris Evans from the Guthrie News page, my guest all throughout the football season. And I guess we'll do it again next week, because we got lots to talk about. Final matchups and semifinals for Class C, Class 4A, and Class 5A.
Can't wait for it.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving, and we will talk to you again. You've been watching a presentation of the Oklahoma Sports Network.